After 7 years of loyal service, Princess Charlotte's bodyguard, Thomas Albridge, was suddenly dismissed under circumstances that shocked many. What happened next, however, went viral overnight, and for good reason. She trusts me more than anyone else in the world, and I'd take a bullet for her, Thomas said, standing just outside Buckingham Palace on his final day of service. The 41-year-old former Special Air Service operative, who had become Charlotte's closest protector since she was 2, was let go without ceremony. No royal goodbye, just a handshake and a folder labeled transition. From royal tours to quiet family picnics, Thomas had been more than a bodyguard. He was her anchor, her safe space in a world full of palace protocol. They shared small, private rituals, a silent sign language, early arrival for school runs, and shared shortbread biscuits. But without explanation beyond a vague mention of internal restructuring. It was over. Thomas didn't protest. He handed in his badge and walked away, carrying a silver bracelet engraved by Charlotte. 7 years. Thank you, Tommy. Inside the palace, Charlotte, unaware of his dismissal, was practicing piano. She only found out later from her older brother, George. At just 9 years old, Charlotte didn't cry. She simply went quiet. Her mother, Princess Catherine, noticed a change immediately. Meal times turned silent, and when asked what was wrong, Charlotte simply said, "I'm just tired." But Catherine knew better. Something had shifted. Meanwhile, Thomas tried to adjust to civilian life in Kent, opening a small training facility for young veterans. Yet, he often found himself looking at the bracelet Charlotte had given him and wondering how she was coping. He wanted to reach out, but held back, respecting palace boundaries. He figured she'd eventually forget him, but she hadn't. Not even close. Charlotte began a secret nightly routine, writing letters to Thomas that she never sent, folding them neatly, tying them with a ribbon, and placing them in a wooden box in her desk. One read, "Dear Tommy, I still imagine you walking behind me during our school walks. I'm sorry I didn't get to say goodbye. I miss your stories. Love, C." Her new bodyguard, Agent Liam Turner, stern and professional. Tried to connect, but it was clear he didn't understand her like Thomas had. She responded politely, distantly. During a children's charity event, she froze at the podium, not out of fear, but because the man who once stood silently behind the cameras wasn't there. She delivered the speech with a smile, but later in the car, when asked if she was okay, she simply replied, "I miss someone." That night, the family nanny revealed something unexpected. Charlotte still talked about Thomas, even spoke to him when alone in her room. This wasn't just a phase. She hadn't moved on. And in Kent, Thomas kept finding reminders of her, a drawing from a Canada trip, a note calling him the best ninja ever. One day, a thick envelope arrived without a return address, filled with photos of Charlotte beside her new guard. On the back of each photo was a note written in pencil, still smiling, but not the same. Thomas had a feeling who sent them. Margaret, the nanny, always knew. He placed the photos in the bracelet box and stared out the window, thinking. Meanwhile, Charlotte was quietly plotting something of her own. One Thursday morning, dressed in her Navy school uniform, she refused breakfast. "Not hungry," she mumbled. Catherine, sensing more than just tiredness, sat by her bed. Charlotte, once an early riser who loved organizing her books and dolls, now seemed dimmed. That evening, William and Catherine sat with Margaret to voice their concerns. Margaret confirmed what they feared. Charlotte was still grieving. "She hasn't been the same since Thomas left," she said. William looked away, heart sinking. Catherine added, "She's not moving on. She's holding on to someone who was cut out of her life without warning." Then Margaret said something that caught them both off guard. "He misses her too, you know." And in that quiet moment, William made a decision he wasn't sure he was allowed to make. He picked up the phone and made a discreet call. 2 days later, Thomas Albridge received a short email. "Would you be open?" Princess Charlotte sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor, surrounded by a pile of old photos, videos, and tiny keepsakes. Her pink laptop rested on her knees, a personal device monitored by palace staff, though not in real time. Beside her, a stuffed bunny sat upright, as if assisting in the mission. She had a plan. Ever since her cousin Emily had shown her how to create a private slideshow with music, Charlotte had become obsessed with storytelling through pictures and videos. But this time, she was creating something different, a tribute. It began as a simple project, just a short video of her favorite memories with Thomas. Yet, as she scrolled through photos on a hidden flash drive, birthdays, garden walks, and the snowman they once built at Balmoral, it became something deeper, a farewell. Charlotte chose a soft piano instrumental for background music and recorded her voice. "This is my bodyguard. His name is Tommy. He protected me every single day for 7 years. He made me laugh. He taught me how to stay brave when I was scared. And one day he just disappeared." Her voice cracked slightly. She paused, took a deep breath, and started again. Over several evenings, she refined the video, adding scanned drawings he helped her with. The final shot showed the bracelet she'd given him, held up to camera as she whispered, "This is for you." But she faced one problem: uploading it. Palace guidelines were strict. Every email, every message, even her drawings, were reviewed. But Emily had taught her a trick: to create a private YouTube account not tied to any family profile. It would appear anonymous. The video sat in draft mode for 3 days. Charlotte would open the tab, hover over the publish button, and close it again. She wasn't scared of punishment. She was scared of being misunderstood. Meanwhile, in Kent, Thomas sat across from Prince William in a quiet cafe outside London. "She hasn't been herself," William confessed. "We didn't realize how much you meant to her until after you left." "I didn't leave," Thomas replied gently. "I was let go." William nodded. "I know, and if it's any consolation, it shouldn't have happened that way." There were no promises of reinstatement, but it was a moment of closure and respect. The next morning, before breakfast or tutoring, Charlotte sat in front of her laptop, heart pounding, and quietly clicked publish. The tribute video went viral overnight. It began with shares on a royal fan forum, then a parenting blog reposted it. By 2 p.m., it had over 200,000 views. By dinner, it reached 1.4 million. The video was anonymous, no face, no name, but anyone with a clue could tell it came from someone close. What captivated people most wasn't the images, but the voiceover. Charlotte's young, genuine voice spoke with grace and maturity beyond her 9 years. "He wasn't just my bodyguard. He was my friend. And even though I'm a princess, I don't always feel brave. But he made me feel safe. He made me feel like I could be myself." Viewers were stunned. Royal watchers, psychologists, former guards, and journalists praised the tribute's emotional honesty. Palace aides quickly traced the upload. It came from within the Kensington Palace network. William and Catherine were at a charity gala when informed. Catherine froze mid-sentence. William stepped aside to watch the video. After a quiet moment, he said softly, "She's telling the world what we should have said a long time ago." Meanwhile, Charlotte, unaware of the storm, was coloring in her room when her mother walked in, holding a tablet. "Lai, you made something very beautiful." Charlotte looked up, surprised. "You saw it?" "I did, and so has half the world." "Am I in trouble?" she asked. "No," Catherine said, kneeling beside her. "You were brave." That night, Charlotte sat with both parents as palace staff carefully drafted and released a statement. "We are deeply touched by the outpouring of support for Thomas Aldridge, who served our family faithfully and with great care for over 7 years. We are grateful for his years of protection and for the bond he shared with our daughter, Charlotte." The next day, Thomas's phone buzzed nonstop. His security school's inbox overflowed with applications. He didn't respond to media requests. Instead, he visited a florist in Kent and bought a bouquet of simple white daisies, Charlotte's favorite. He attached a note: "You have always been braver than you know. T." There was no return address, but Charlotte didn't need one. When the flowers arrived, she smiled softly and placed them by her window, then picked up her stuffed bunny and whispered. A week after the video went viral, the palace arranged something rare and private. No press, no cameras, just a quiet Sunday morning walk in the gardens. Charlotte, holding her mother's hand, approached a familiar figure standing beneath the rose arches. Thomas stood by a bench in a gray coat. He smiled but didn't move. Charlotte ran to him and hugged him tightly. "You really came," she whispered. "Of course I did," he replied. "You called me, didn't you?" After walking and talking for half an hour, Charlotte asked, "Do you think they'll let you come back?" Thomas smiled gently. "I don't think that matters anymore. We got our goodbye." When he left, there were no tears, only smiles and the promise of seeing each other again. That night, for the first time in a long time, Charlotte slept peacefully, knowing her friend had never forgotten her and never would. Would you have reacted differently if you were in Princess Charlotte's bodyguard's position? Tell us in the comments below. And don't forget to join us again for more surprising stories.